10 seconds. Please mute your mics. Go live. Call this meeting to order. Any declarations of interest? Councillor Sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have a declaration for PWCS 2021-16 and bylaw 19-2021 for the TCAG fee for service agreement.
Okay, did you, on it, you got that? Okay. Adoption of agenda, moved by Councillor Neal and seconded by Councillor Kenny. That council adopt the agenda for the meeting of March 2nd, 2021. Any amendments? Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment to the statements by Councillor. I'd like to make a statement pertaining to staff going back to work in a completely safe manner, skipping no protocols that should be in place for COVID.
So,
And if I get the support, I can explain it later.
yep. You need 2/3 vote to move that. Do we have all those in favor? Opposed? You got your 2/3. So when you bring it up under statement of council, we'll discuss it further then, Councillor Kenny. Okay. So everybody ready to adopt the agenda with that amendment? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Adoption of the minutes, council meeting minutes of February 3rd, 2021, moved by Councillor Sentence, seconded by Councillor Kent Hanley. Is he on yet? So I'll say Councillor Longo, that the council meeting minutes of February 3rd, 2021 be hereby adopted. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Council meeting minutes of February 9th, 2021, moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Decker, that the council meeting minutes of February 9th, 2021 be hereby adopted. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Council meeting minutes of February 16th, 2021, moved by Councillor Longo, seconded by Councillor DeRose, that the council meeting minutes of February 16th, 2021 be hereby adopted. Any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Mayor's report. Dr. Hergy, Acting Medical Officer of Health and Commissioner Public Health and Emergency Services at the Niagara region, will be providing his next COVID-19 status update Zoom workshop to Regional Council on Friday at 2 p.m. These sessions typically focus on issues like the status in Niagara, comparable case counts, variant strains, and vaccine rollout, as well as a question and answer period. These meetings are live streamed. So anybody that wants to chime in Friday at 2 o'clock, it's live streamed on the region website. On Monday, February 22nd, 2021, I was honored to be re-elected chair of the Waste Management Steering Committee at the Niagara region for the remainder of this term of council. I had been chair for the first 2 years of this term. The same day, Councillor Neal, Regional Councillor Whalen, and I attended the virtual Zoom meeting hosted by Niagara Board of Trade and Commerce, featuring an excellent presentation by Hope Port's Commercial Vice President, Jeremy Dunn. The session was well attended and focused on leveraging Niagara's maritime advantage. On Monday, February 22nd, the regional chair and mayors met virtually, and the discussion focused on the importance of the communication strategy, especially with the upcoming rollout of the vaccines. On Thursday, February 25th, I was honored to be a guest panelist at the webinar hosted by the Town and Gown Association of Ontario. This webinar followed their annual meeting and was titled Building Communities, a discussion of Town and Gown community building strategies during the COVID-19 pandemic. The City of Thorold is recognized as being a leader with our very active Town and Gown Committee. This afternoon, our subcommittee met to discuss our annual St. Patrick's Day strategy. And on both of these calls, our chief billing official, Jason Simpson, was also on both of these. On Friday, February 26th, the province of Ontario hosted a vaccine update virtual information session for the heads of council. Premier Doug Ford, Minister Clark, Minister Elliott, Solicitor General Jones, and General Hillier provided the update. General Hillier's updates are distributed to council. The schedule laid out is dependent on expected supply chain deliveries. It looks like the delivery backlog situation has been rectified, which is good news, as well as a third vaccine from AstraZeneca has been approved, and the 1-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine may not be far off. Please visit the Niagara Region website, go to novel coronavirus update. Under health and safety, go to COVID-19 vaccination. That is where excellent vaccine information is provided and updated. We will be providing local vaccine distribution information as it becomes available on our website and social media pages. Our EOC group is working in conjunction with all area municipalities and public health at the region on a local vaccine rollout plan and schedule. Worth noting will be the online provincial registry to book your appointment when your age group is open to be vaccinated in your region. There will also be a phone-in option. This system should be up and running by mid-March. Also, they will go by birth year, not using the month in that year that you were born, to avoid confusion and simplify logistics. And in talking to Chair Bradley today, he's expecting that we'll have some further information to share, hopefully as soon as tomorrow or the day after, and that we'll get that information out as soon as we get it. On Friday, March 12th, flags will be lowered to half-mast across the region, including our city hall, for a period of 3 days. This will honor those who have died of COVID-19 over the past year, the 1-year anniversary since we took the first measures citywide to fight the spread of the virus. As of yesterday, 369 people have passed away from COVID-19 in Niagara since last March. Our heartfelt condolences go out to all families and friends who have lost someone. It is especially difficult during the pandemic when normal hospital visits, funeral visitation, and service are not possible. On Friday, February 26th, the province announced Niagara's move from the gray lockdown zone to the red control zone. This was effective yesterday, March 1st. Although this allows for some loosening of restrictions, there are many restrictions still in place, including the public health orders on dining and retail. This is a slow and steady step forward that recognizes the efforts made by our residents and businesses while maintaining a focus on caution and the continued importance of following the public health safety measures. As the mass vaccine rollout begins and the much anticipated spring weather arrives, we will be in a better place, but we must stay the course. Please follow the public health safety measures, continue to support one another, our frontline workers, those less fortunate or living alone, and more than ever, our local businesses who are the backbone of our community. Congratulations to Susan France, winner of the Shop Thorold slogan contest, with her excellent submission, "Shop where you live, love where you shop." As a result of entering the red control zone, City Hall is reopening by appointment for most services. Residents are encouraged to continue using online services. Please visit the city website for more information, as there was a release in that website today that gives all the restrictions under the red control zone. And that's the end of my mayor's report. Motion to receive and file minutes or adopt recommendations of council, committees, and boards. Minutes to review for information purposes, moved by Councillor Hanley and seconded by Councillor Sentence, that council receive and file the minutes of the committees of council local boards as presented. Thorold Heritage, LACAC, Age Friendly Committee, Thorold BIA, Committee of Adjustment, and Active Transportation Advisory Committee. Anyone want to speak to any of those reports? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Minutes to endorse recommendations. Special Events Committee, moved by Councillor Decker, seconded by Councillor Kenny, that council adopt the recommendations contained within the minutes of the Special Events Committee meeting of January 14th, 2020. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Statement by councilors. I have up first Councillor DeRose. Total cost of Jim Hanley investigation. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the appropriate staff, can we just have a final tally of what the Jim Hanley investigation cost the city? Thank you.
Who's going to answer this, CAO or city clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor. We are still tallying. The cost of the investigation will be reported at the next meeting.
Okay, Councillor DeRose.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Hanley's up with condition of roads, Port Robinson West. Councillor Hanley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if my fellow councillors today received the photos. But anyways, been receiving several complaints in regards to the road conditions, the Empire developments in Port Robinson West. So I visited myself out there personally on Friday and witnessed an extreme amount of mud on the roads. Yes, there was a sweeper out there, but just doing right where the cul-de-sac was, heavy equipment. And I'm not sure, like, if we could have the city look into it. I haven't been able to really justify. I get two different variant answers on whether or not the equipment, which is driving up and down those roads, can actually be on the road. My understanding is in the land that they may own, they would have to build their own road and only use Port Robinson Road or the side street Cotmire Road as a crossroad to get in and out of the developments, not as actually as a thoroughfare to run their equipment, because it is heavy equipment. It's not licensed. There is just a slow traffic vehicle sign on the equipment. And I don't know if any of my other fellow councilors have gone out there. I think that we've addressed this several times. And I talked to Jeff Holman on Friday, and I'm of the theory and the thought process that maybe we need to get to a proactive approach on this, not a reactive, that when we receive a complaint, the city goes out there, we're going to clean the road, we're going to get the water trucks out there, we're going to maintain it, we're going to build Empire Homes. Because it's obvious that this has been a long-standing issue. We as a council and as a city have been trying to address it. It's obviously gone ignored by the developers. And for anybody that's gone out there, I don't know if you've gone out there, but today's pictures, that was this morning, the mud, I mean, it's not just a little bit on the road. It's caked on there significantly and impacting residents' vehicles and that stuff. And we as a city, we've tried to address it and it's come to no avail. So I don't know if I could we could have a report from Jeff Holman on it, Mr. Mayor, but I'm of the mindset, like I said, now we need to start going out there as a municipality, cleaning up the mess ourselves and building Empire Homes and doing what we should be doing as a city and that stuff and addressing this once and for all. It's come to that point, I believe.
Councillor Hanley, I'll get our Director of Public Works to speak on that. And I've been out there myself to have a look out there as well. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I know how difficult it is at this time of the year. And there are other developments that do a much better job of keeping things tidy. Just the scope and the scale of this project and the location of their transportation route makes it difficult. And I can sympathize with the residents living in Port Robinson West having to drive through this, and there's really no way to get around it. We can bring back some options in a report. We can have further consultation discussions with the developer or see if we can't be a little bit more proactive. Unfortunately, we don't have access as a city. We don't have access to any different equipment than they do. But we can look at maybe a tighter schedule for staying on top of things. There will be some fouling of the roads that we just can't avoid. But we can do a better job, I think, maybe of staying on top of it, even if we have to commit our own equipment to it.
So Counselor Hanley, you want to report back? Jeff said he can bring a report back on that issue.
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor, because to me, I'm in the type of civil construction business myself. We deal with it. A front end loader and that stuff, or even a backhoe with the blade out there. We need to keep the road straight and that stuff. I don't know if you yourself or any of my fellow councilors have seen some of the photos from some of the residents' vehicles. And obviously, winter season just coming to an end and there's going to be mud and whatever and that stuff, but we need to get it because summer is just around the corner and what it looks like now, it's only going to get worse, not better. So report would be more than appreciated, Mr. Mayor, and thank you.
Okay, so I got Counselor Hanley to move to bring a report back from Public Works. Can I get a seconder? Counselor DeRose? Any discussion? Although, go ahead, Counselor DeRose.
Just want to reiterate what Counselor Hanley said. I drove out there myself and I was very shocked. I think part of the problem though, Counselor Hanley, also is the time of year. But there's no justification for what Empire or whoever's building out there is doing. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor DeRose. Okay, I'll vote on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed, and that's carried. Go ahead, Counselor Hanley, meeting conditions of code of conduct complaint.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. As council is well aware of, is that there is conditions set upon me in regards to my discipline for my conduct towards staff and members of council. And I've completed and the court is satisfied, or the lawyers are satisfied with it in regards to the sensitivity training of it. And all I have left is just the 5 months left of no pay. So I just want to let council be aware of that I've satisfied requirement to set out as part of my discipline, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Hanley. Counselor Hanley, you're up again. Rats.
Okay, we obviously know, I know we talked about this in the past, and I do have some reports. And it's been a contentious issue lately, and lots of complaints, like not 5, 10, like dozens, but I realize that they are running rampant around the municipality and that stuff. And some people think that it's the city's responsibility in regards to it. So I know that we've had a report on it in regards to rats in the past. I'm wanting to know if that maybe the city on their website can post something in regards to it as we had in the past. I don't want to bring it up any further because I do think, if I may, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the clerk, do we vote on it at one time where we were looking to possibly compensate the residents and that was turned down?
My understanding is that's correct, but I can have the clerk answer that, Counselor Hanley.
Through the mayor to Counselor Hanley, that's my recollection as well. It was voted on and it wasn't supported.
As far as the website, do you want us to, we had a posting on there. Can we make sure it's front and center and we get it out there? Is that Counselor Hanley? She's going to make sure that gets put front and center on the city website?
Yes, if you could please, because I knowing that I didn't support it, so I can't bring it back to the floor and that stuff in regards to it until the next term of council, because it's happened on this term of council in regards to compensating residents. But if we could do something like that, and not only that, if through you, Mr. Mayor, to Jason, if I could ask, I really sorry I didn't have a chance to look at my phone or my personal email. I got home right from work. In regards to garbage and the response, is there a bylaw in regards to when people can or cannot put their garbage out to the curb?
I'll let Jason answer that. He sent a response out. There is, Counselor Hanley. And are you there, Jason?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, I
So-
didn't get a chance to look at my email after work.
No problem. Through you, Mr. Mayor, there is a Niagara regional bylaw with regards to the waste control. It is enforced by the bylaw or by the region. The bylaw identifies that the waste cannot be placed out prior to 5 p.m. The evening prior to the waste collection day, and no later than 7 a.m. on the waste collection day. And in addition to that, when we are made aware that someone has put waste out prior to that or longer than that, we do notify the region and they follow up.
Okay, because that's also an issue too, because I know that Counselor Neal responded to the lady today. I did see that, but I didn't see the response in regards to a rat problem on King Street in Thorold by Richmond Street. I don't know if he wants to comment on that or not. But as far as the region handle it, can we also post that, if I can, through you, Mr. Mayor, to appropriate staff member on our website, contact information? A lot of people believe it's the city they should be contacting in regards to that, and that's great information, that it should be the region.
Should be the region. And I can tell you that the region's going to be doing a blitz on the garbage collection as well as illegal dumping. Okay, so there's going to be, and we can make sure that we distribute that information on our website and Facebook page as well, Councillor Hanley. I'll turn it over to the clerk though.
Through you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor, to Counselor Hanley, right on our homepage of our website, there is a button right across the middle of the page to garbage and recycling. And that takes you right to the region's website where they can provide or find all that information with regard to waste management.
Okay, I thank you for that information.
Welcome.
Okay. Councillor Neal, did you want to speak on that? Go
Just
ahead.
just to let Counselor Hanley know that I did send that to Jason, and Jason's going to look into it to make sure things are done properly over there.
That's correct. I seen the response. Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I also believe, and I think we discussed this, I think I brought it up about 10 months ago at a council meeting. But I think we need to be proactive with the developers that are not taking care of their responsibility as far as removing the rodents as they're building. And I know some of the new subdivisions are just overwhelmed with the amount of rats. And I think, the garbage is an issue also. If you give them food to eat, they will find it, or leave out food anywhere. But I honestly think this is why people, I think, are blaming the city, is basically they think we're not doing enough to deal with the developers that are not following the protocol that they have to take care of the displacement of the rodents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeRose. Okay, we're going to move on now to Councillor Kenny. And then I'm going to turn it over to the clerk because you say, can you explain the process on this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as Counselor Kenny did not provide a notice of motion, he does require a 2/3 vote of council to proceed with any type of motion he requires. Once the motion's on the floor, it's passed by simple majority.
So does he need that prior to flooring the motion, or at the same time we do both votes?
That's correct. So he would be speaking to his motion, asking for his 2/3 vote, putting the motion on the floor, voting on it for simple majority.
Okay, I got you. Okay, Councillor Kenny, you're up.
Yes, so my motion would be that staff return their work in a completely safe manner, skipping no protocols that should be in place for COVID. And I'll explain, I guess I'll hopefully get an opportunity to explain my motion once it's voted on, I guess.
First of all, that's going to be the motion. Do you have a seconder for that motion? I got Councillor Decker. Okay. So that's going to be the motion that we can have further discussion on and then vote on the motion, but we need 2/3 to proceed. So all those in favor of proceeding? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so now you put the motion on the floor and we can open the question for debate there.
But
Anyone wants to speak to it?
can I just explain the motion?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so the motion is there. I'm not complaining about the way our people are working. I just think it's time, now that we've moved out of lockdown, that they return to work. And also speaking to the employees themselves, if anybody has any issues, they have a safety committee to go to, and I don't want anybody working unsafely. So that's it. That's all I'm asking.
Speakers, to anyone want to speak to this? Go ahead, Councillor Sentence. You're muted, Counselor Sutton.
I know, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I have no problem with the motion, but it has to be if they feel safe coming back to work, if it's a safe environment, depending on what color we're in, and as long as this is done safely. Maybe some people want to come back after, after a year of this, but as long as this is done right, then that's where I stand on it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Counselor Hanley, go ahead. And then Counselor Decker. And then Counselor Longo, I seen your hand up as well.
Well, I guess for staff coming back to work, the first thing we would have to have is a person on duty that's probably going to have to be working full-time to maintain touch surfaces, doorknobs, light switches, photocopier, lunchroom, coffee makers, microwaves. The reason I'm saying that is I'm actually the COVID cleaner on my job site, and I oversee every trailer on the construction site, 15 trailers in total. And in order for the staff to come to work and for the staff to be there, there's several protocols that have to be met. And I'm thinking that if we're going to allow staff to come back to work, then we have to take that into consideration, because that's one of the parts of cross-contamination is touch surfaces. And when you work with an environment, we have 40 individuals at work, 5 trailers, 4 trailers for the laborers, and we have to have someone that takes care of all the touch surfaces. And I'll tell you when we do it. We're on 7 o'clock, they go to work. We go around, we do every trailer, all the touch surfaces. 9:30 break, after lunch, after afternoon break. So if we're going to be safe for the employees and the fear that we don't want to have any COVID-19 cases, then I think that we're going to have a cleaner on board too. That's just my personal opinion, because if people are going to enter the workforce in the work area, there's a lot to be adhered to make it a safe environment for everybody to work in. Singular, in your own office space, whatever, and maintaining your own cleansing is one thing, but in a work environment, still to this day, that's where I'm at, Anna, just to let you know.
Thank you, Counselor Hanley. I had Counselor Decker, I think, was next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I agree with Counselor Kenny. I can say that I've worked through COVID since last March, and I work in a public environment. Sure, you have to follow your protocols. You have to wear your masks. You have to wash your hands. You have wipes to clean the surfaces. You have to maintain physical distancing. You have to follow it, and you have to. I mean, people know what they have to do and what they can't do. And I know our place gets deep cleaned every evening, and throughout the day we go around and we wipe counters and machines and spaces where customers are around. And I think it's really important that people are in place and that we have people that are at City Hall that can be contacted if people have questions or they're trying to get in touch with somebody. So for sure, I agree with Counselor Kenny. And yeah, obviously we have to have our protocols in place. But there are ways of doing that. And I'm sure that we'd be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Decker. I got Counselor Longo, you're up. Counselor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I just want to start by saying I thought we should have done this months ago. I brought it forward, but there wasn't an appetite at that time. I believe any way we bring people back obviously needs to be done in a safe way. We need to have a plan in place. As Councillor Decker said, there's been many businesses, many people who've never taken a day off and have figured out how to get through this. So I would support this, but I think what we need is a comprehensive plan from senior staff. That's what I asked 4 months ago. So I'll support this, but only if we have a comprehensive plan on how we're going to do it, how we're going to keep people safe. And I think that's the only way we can move forward. We have to get in front of this as much as we can remembering that it's dangerous, but there are ways to provide the services that people expect from us. So it's been a year, time to figure it out. And if things get bad again, then we'll step backwards, but time to move forward. Thank you.
Councillor Longo, would you like to ask for an amendment then to include that in the motion?
Absolutely. It's the only way forward. I agree with doing it, but we need a comprehensive plan on how we're going to do it and keep people safe. So if Councillor Kenny would accept that, I would amend it that way.
Councillor Kenny, we accept that friendly amendment.
Sure, I would. Maybe you want to read something out, Councillor Longo?
One sec. I just want to hear first. You go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Kenny. I don't have anything written I can read, but basically what I've said here. I agree we need to get staff back in the offices, back in the field, but I believe we need to have a plan before we do it. And I don't think the plan should take an extreme amount of time, but yeah, hopefully it's something we've been working on for the last year. I hope this isn't a surprise. So let's get a plan together and get people back to work.
Is that good? Donis, our city clerk's drafted some language. Go ahead, Don.
Just to that, like the motion said, skipping no protocols that should be in place for all COVID protection. That was part of the motion.
I know, but that's just, let's read what our clerk's added.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay, so here's what I have for the motions with regard to this item. So the first one that we already passed was that we're waiving the rules of procedure bylaws to permit a motion without a prior notice of motion. That's passed and carried. Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Decker. The other motion was that the CAO be directed to have all staff return to work in a completely safe manner, ensuring all protocols are in place for COVID-19. And that senior staff team be directed to prepare a comprehensive return to work plan for all staff.
So that's the friendly amendment. Okay, so with the friendly amendment, we do not need to vote separately because it's a friendly amendment to the motion, but I got Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just wondering if we could add to that friendly amendment. Councillor Longo did say it like that it shouldn't take a long period of time, but maybe we can put a timeline on it. I just don't want to see it to be something that comes back to council like 4 weeks from now or 4 council meetings from now. I don't know if that's possible, but if we ask for it to come back at the next council meeting.
Next council meeting, and the next meeting gives us an extra week because it's not till 3 weeks. Okay. So that should be doable. You want to put that? We'll make that's duly noted. Okay. Does everybody agree with that? Okay, Councillor Hanley.
Just one thing, Councillor, through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Longo made a great point there in regards to, and I remember him bringing up the fact about having staff come back to City Hall some time ago. Since that time, can I ask, have staff or has anybody been preparing or working on a return to work policy? Because this could be a part of Councillor Kenny's motion here that staff, it would be a great assistant if we already had something in place or something was in the works, or is this something we're just going to actually just start now? Through the appropriate staff member.
The CAO, I'll have them to chime in on that.
Through Mr. Mayor, even though when the City Hall was closed to public, I said more than 50% of the staff was even every time they are coming to work. Even during the lockdown period, those staff were there. So yes, the public was not entertained. We are not opened those doors for the public, but we were connecting with them through online and or through through telephone. One thing that I would like to ask council is that when we bring everybody back to work, so you want to open the City Hall and the people can come to the City Hall to pay their bills or attend, or it's just the city staff is coming there and it's still connecting with them. So that I just need to know from the motion itself, it's the public is allowed to come in. So that's one part of it. In terms of the plan in place, in terms, yes, whenever we're in different stages, as I said, even though that the public is not allowed to come to the city hall because of COVID, but there is, I would say, more than 50% of the staff is present at the city hall on an everyday basis. What we could do is we have a plan, and again, that would include talking to our CMC, Terry Dixon, and our health and safety person. We need to make sure that we will have cleaning person, as Councillor Handley has noted out, to make sure that it is done in the most safe manner. That plan could be put together and will be brought forward to council at next council meeting. But just needed to have a clarification whether only the staff is coming or the public is also will be allowed to come to the city. Thank you.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Kenny, this is relating to staff. Am I correct? Because we already have a policy in place under red control on by appointment only for the general public. Am I correct that this is for staff? Go ahead.
Yes, that was my motion for staff.
Okay, so we're going to read the motion again. Go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Mr. Mayor, just to reiterate, my question was, have we a policy in place? Because we had discussed this before, and not to go on it, but we should already have a policy in place when we're going to get to 60% staff, 70% staff, 80% staff, 90% staff. It sounds like we're going to get a hold of our chief, Terry Dixon, to start to formulate a process and to get to that point. And, you know, it has been a year and it's been brought to council's attention and staff some time ago. So I'm of concern here that there should already most be a process in place. And I respect Councillor Kenny's motion. I'll support it and that stuff with the amendment, but it should be cut and dry almost, that there shouldn't be a time frame. We should already have something in place, I feel. That's my personal opinion.
To our CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the plan has always been prepared. Yes, we have, as I said, more than 50% of staff is coming in there. So there are cleaning protocols that are in place. When we bring 100% staff, of course, there will be a need for additional cleaning, and that needs to be, so it's not going to take us very long to put the plan together. The plan has always been there at every stage. And just as I said, our CMC, our health and safety coordinator, is going to look at it and revise it, and then just going to bring it forward. And if the desire is that 100% staff is back at the city hall, we certainly can do that. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the CAO. That being said, Mr. Dewaria, I don't want to wait 3 weeks if we don't have to. So are you confident that I guess we don't need a report by the sounds of it? You're ready to bring staff back? Can you confidently say you can get them back to work in under 3 weeks, and that would eliminate a need for a report, and we can get people back to work if you're prepared?
I'll turn that over again to CAO to answer that.
Through there, Mr. Mayor, as I said, we will have our EOC meeting. I will connect with our CEMC and our health and safety individual just to see that how quickly we can bring, and if it can be done before the 3 weeks period, we will certainly do that, and we can inform council accordingly that this is the date that everybody is coming back to work.
Go ahead, Councillor Longo, continue.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO, do you think you can do it in under 3 weeks? Because we've had a year to prepare. So can we get people back to work without my amendment?
Through Mr. Mayor, I think we certainly can do it within the 3 weeks period.
Okay. Then, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to withdraw my amendment and not bring this back to council. It doesn't seem it needs to be.
Okay, but I'll also get our EOC chair, Terry Dixon, Chief Dixon, to comment as well. Maybe he can clarify a few points. Go ahead, Chief Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, just for council's awareness, we do have to be cognizant of a couple of things here. We did move into the red zone as of Monday, but I want us all to be aware that the new variants that are coming through right now that are way more highly contagious than the actual COVID-19 virus was. It takes 2 weeks for them to get results back. And Thorold right now in itself, Niagara region itself, has 0 cases of the new variant. But there's 38 cases pending in the Niagara region. Dr. Tams, the provincial health administrator, spoke today on it regarding the new variants, which they're very, very cautious about. Dr. Hergy himself has also spoke on the new variants, and his reasoning for keeping us in the gray zone as long as he did was because of this reason. So I would cautiously say we would try to attempt to bring staff back within the next 3 weeks, but we are in probably week and a half into the new variant process, where I feel that within the next week, we should know if that new variant has hit Niagara and how bad it's hit Niagara. What that means for us is you are all correct that yes, there is proper protocols we can put in place, but from staff's point of view, small lunchrooms, those types of things that we have to deal with at City Hall, we're going to have to be very, very cautious how we go about this with the new variant. So I just want you all to be aware of that. I have no problems with working on getting people back to work. That's not the issue. It's more of what's coming next. And the biggest fear of the whole process was this possible third wave that could be happening with COVID-19. And the vaccines are superior right now. They're helping immensely. As you know, the first responders have started their vaccines as of last Thursday. So we are moving in the right direction. I just don't know if we're there yet, but that's what I have to tell you is the update on that portion of it. But I know as of today, there's 38 cases pending for the Niagara region. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak? So, and to Chief Dixon, I think that in the motion respects the thing that if we have to adjust and make changes, we have to do what we have to do to keep everyone safe. Am I correct, Councillor Kenny?
Yes.
And Councillor Longo, you're withdrawing that and we're going with the original motion. Am I correct? Okay, can you read the original motion and then we'll vote on it?
For you, Mr. Mayor, I didn't catch who the seconder was for that motion.
Councillor Decker.
Councillor Decker for both. Okay, thank you. So the motion on the floor is that the CAO be directed to have all staff return to work in a completely safe manner, ensuring all protocols are in place for COVID-19.
Okay.
And that City Hall remain closed to the public until we transition out into a safe zone.
Well, that's already been, it's by appointment only. That's already been well documented and it's on our website as well.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay. Very good discussion. Next, delegations to report. Matt Robinson, Director of Goal Implementation, Region of Niagara, is going to give us a presentation today on regional transit. And I'll turn this over. Matt, are you there?
I am, sir. Just getting through the relogging in here from staff. I will share my screen.
And Councillor Whalen's chiming in on this as well, just so you know.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for the opportunity to be here on behalf of the Linking Niagara Transit Committee as the next step in the transit governance consultation. With me tonight are members of the project team, as well as our study consultants who will be called upon in the Q&A. I first wanted to recognize Mayor Ugolini and Regional Councillor Whalen for their continued support of transit at Regional Council. Tonight, Council will hear about the next steps in the progression toward a consolidated transit system in Niagara. Tonight is about consultation. This is Council's chance to provide the project team and the LNTC with feedback on the governance model. The governance model is our focus in this next step. There are still many details to be determined, including ongoing collaboration on the financial model. The LNTC is not asking Council to make any final decisions tonight. Tonight is about whether the governance model is the right one to continue to progress forward. This is not the triple majority vote. Your staff report outlines areas of feedback and demonstrates how Council can support the next steps while ensuring specific feedback is captured. This is the type of feedback we're seeking at this stage. So tonight we'll examine where we've been and why we're here. The governance studies highlights, examine some benefits of a consolidated system, and then finish up with a look at next steps. When we were last before council in 2017, triple majority was sought for the region to operate transit. Included then was an endorsement in principle to move forward with transit consolidation. Tonight builds on that endorsement and takes another step forward. The LNTC was established after that triple majority process. It was established to direct operational harmonization and develop a transit governance recommendation, which is before you tonight for feedback. With the Linking Niagara Transit Committee supporting the commission model in principle, they're now requesting municipal input into the recommendations. The City of Thorold has an established transit system operated in partnership with the City of St. Catharines to meet the needs of your residents and a robust post-secondary student population. So we aren't here tonight to speak to you about the merits of transit. You clearly understand the need in your community with the service that you have. So with transit well established in Thorold, let's start with why integrate. The governance study outlines the economic benefits to a connected and seamless intermunicipal transit system, whether as a driver for a competitive business environment or enabling the city to thrive as a growing community. An integrated IMT system also allows residents to connect more seamlessly, increasing social equity by breaking down mobility and economic barriers, making communities across Niagara connected in ways that improve on our residents' social determinants of health. Likewise, employers attest to the need for a connected and seamless system that enables their business and employees to access skills and opportunities both to and from the GTHA. We know that Niagara's demographics are shifting as more people move here from the GTA and opt to commute into Toronto. It's no longer a competitive advantage to have integrated transit, it's a requirement. And lastly, integrated transit supports sustainability, it contributes to a greener economy, and enables a shift to greater transit use and less vehicles on the road. So with many compelling reasons to integrate, why do it now? Well, COVID-19 has had a dramatic impact on transit across the world, and Niagara has certainly not been immune to its effects. Most systems have ridership numbers that are a small fraction of their pre-pandemic numbers. Consolidating now allows us to maximize our resources with efficiencies at a time when resources are even more precious and ridership is significantly reduced. We know that many of our peer GTA systems are using this opportunity to recalibrate their operations, find efficiencies, and be ready with added value for customers as things start to recover. Overall, integrating now would allow us to create a maximized system that fully leverages the resources we've collectively invested to make our transit system even better. Transitioning to a larger system will also ensure faster, more targeted investments are made to underserved or unserved areas of Niagara, where the introduction of on-demand services are proving to be very effective and experiencing significant growth. And lastly, it allows for a seamless integration with the GO network, whether future integration with the Presto payment system, new direct connections to the GO station in St. Catharines, or expansion of GO Bus to possible new stops like Brock University. This is significantly more effective under a single transit system. We've heard loud and clear from MTO and Metrolinx that an effective local transit system is a necessity for GO expansion. So let's have a quick look at the study's findings, in particular the governance model, which is our focus for this evening. The governance study used a 5-step process that started with a full review of the current state of transit in Niagara, who has what, how they operate it, how much they invest. They did a full jurisdictional scan of peer regions from across Ontario, as well as Edmonton, which together served as the baseline for the analysis. From there, the models were identified, compared, and graded against a number of factors, landing on a final recommendation. With a recommended model, the study then plotted a blueprint for Niagara to transition effectively each step of the way to achieve this in a 24-month period. The study concluded that the full commission model was the most effective for Niagara, bringing the right balance of autonomy and flexibility to drive growth and transit innovation. The commission is recommended to have a 9-member board with 5 voting members from regional council and 4 skills-based members of the public, supported by an advisory committee. A 5-step plan was developed to take the process from approval through to a fully in-service environment, including the selection of the board, the consolidation of staff, assets, and services through to service launch. This process, from start through to service transfer to the new entity, is mapped out in significant detail in the study's transition plan, with the proposed opening day of the new commission being September 2022. So how does transit consolidation benefit and impact the residents in your community? The governance study highlights a number of positive impacts that a consolidated intermunicipal system will have on enhancing customer experience and driving system growth. Establishing a single fare to ride anywhere in Niagara, aligning the age structures for fares, students, children, seniors treated equally across communities, fully implementing next generation fare payment technology using your smartphone for payment, a single transit brand on all buses, a single number or website for riders and customers to visit, transfers to anywhere easily, seamless connections and transfer to an expanded GO network, and establishing future connections to HSR in Hamilton. These significant improvements could remain difficult, disjointed, or unrealistic under the status quo 7 transit agencies we have operating today. Additionally, significant growth in our NRT on-demand pilot service is demonstrating how an on-demand delivery model can effectively connect underserved or unserved communities or areas to larger urban centers with conventional service. New intermunicipal growth brought on by consolidation will enable improved access to urban amenities, employment, tourism, and education, provide connectivity to your residents seeking intermunicipal trips across Niagara for work, family, or medical appointments. Together, these strengthen our social equity. A single IMT system will also feed riders to Niagara's 4 future GO rail stations, including a fully redeveloped GO station at St. Catharines to maximize future GO train service levels. Driving transit users to the GO stations with first and last mile connections is a key requirement of GO expansion. So to deliver on all of these benefits obviously requires a financial strategy. We've heard a lot of feedback on the proposed assessment-based distribution model. We know that more discussion, more work, and more detail needs to occur. The constructive feedback in your staff report regarding the financial model is exactly what we're seeking at this stage. Quickly examining the current proposed financial model, it outlines how transit funding moves to a single levy entirely on the regional budget. This would mean municipal levies will no longer pay for transit by as early as 2023 for some smaller municipalities and 2027 for larger ones. The Cummings principle has been applied to address the future transfer of assets from area municipalities in the region to the new commission. Under this scenario, capital assets will all be transferred to the new commission. Specifically for Thorold, the transition to a single levy is expected to occur over the first 2 years of the 5-year upload period. I wanted to provide clarification on something specifically raised in your staff report as well. We're aware that the financial calculations for Thorold identified in the original governance study calculations were overstated. These were estimates used for the study based on information available at this time. I can confirm with council that Ms. Talbot, who's with us tonight from our side, and Ms. Morrow have spoken as recently as today, and the numbers going forward for any subsequent calculations for Thorold are now accurate as reflected in the slide before you at 620,000. So in summary, the study concludes a full commission is the optimal governance model for Niagara. This is what LNTC is seeking support for in principle and the key reason we're here tonight. Your staff report lays out areas the city wants to see additional work undertaken with regard to the financial contribution and the service planning. This is exactly what this phase is for. And as the last of our 13 councils to visit, you've certainly heard very similar areas of feedback thus far. From here, LNTC has asked we take all of the feedback we've heard and work collaboratively under the leadership of the CAO working group to find effective solutions to the areas raised by all of the municipalities. It's only after this feedback is addressed and the municipal interests, like those raised by council tonight, are incorporated that the triple majority process could commence later in the summer of this year. If the process and timeline progress as planned, by September 2022, Niagara could have the new single transit commission in place. So with that, Thank you, Council, for your attention, and along with the project team, we welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Matt. And I'm going to turn it over to the floor and to council to ask questions. And up first, I've got Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it. Matt, can you please go back to about, I think it's page 18. I just wanted to get you to explain the financial picture there that you had. I think it was the second to last slide. Can you go that and share that with us again? I just need an explanation of the Thorold's commitment. It had arrows going with dollar figures and it didn't make sense to me at all. So I just wanted to, if you could explain it, or someone on your end could explain it.
Oh. There we go. This one here, Councillor?
The next one, I believe.
This one here?
Yeah, right. This one here. Yes, thank you.
All right. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I'm actually going to call on Ms. Talbot, who's leading the financial strategy and working with our area treasurers. So Ms. Talbot, if you can explain sort of the progression of this from where we start today with Thorold's current contribution and what that looks like at the end of the upload.
Certainly. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, the regional or the local levy for your transit costs are $620,000. And on top of that is the assessment value or the assessment cost through the Niagara Regional Transit of an additional almost $600,000. So currently your taxpayer is paying $1.2 million towards transit costs collectively for Niagara Region. Over the transition period, when we upload the existing, remaining existing local transit services, plus we have the inflationary adjustments, in addition to the growth strategy of roughly 2% per year, which is slightly over what the historic growth projections or actual growth numbers have been over the last 3 to 5 years. By the time we hit 2027, that will take the resident taxpayer to almost $2 million. There's also an additional $2 million or $2.7 million that are one-time transition costs that would be repurposed in 2023 to do further service enhancements on top of the 2% service growth year over year over the transition period.
But can we get back to the gallery view here? I can't see. Go ahead, Councillor Rose. Do you?
Yeah, I'm still a little confused, but we'll move on. I just want to ask, is this adding another layer of bureaucracy to Matt?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, plainly put, quite the opposite. We are looking at taking 7 existing transit systems and creating a single transit system where the levy contributions and existing structure and staff from the existing transit footprints across 7 or more municipalities will become a single entity.
Matt, one more question. Can you, just doing some inferencing here, are we being asked to subsidize eventually rides to the GTA? Because right now, yeah, so just, can you answer that, please? Or is this part of the plan? The big master plan is just like when they made one big hospital in St. Catharines, got rid of 4 maternity doctors in the area, and the super hospital only had 1 working. So I'm just wondering, you know, sometimes making bigger isn't always better. So I'm just curious, are we being asked to subsidize rides to the GTA through this, as far as one of the new responsibilities on Thorold?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, no, trips to the GTA, trips to outside of Niagara will not be covered or part of any tax contribution that is made holistically across Niagara to any of this. Those reside with individual residents once they get to, say, a GO station and want to go to Oakville to work. That is their contribution to pay that fare and take GO service. Likewise, HSR, if they take a Hamilton Street Rail connection out of Grimsby into downtown Hamilton, that fare is out of their pockets, not contributed by this new transit commission.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, I got Counselor Hanley. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In regards to costing, as brought up to you, Mr. Mayor, when I look at the types of projects like this here, what I look at the most is the cost per capita per taxpayer the same in all municipalities, or are some municipalities asking to foot more of the bill than others? So you, Mr. Mayor, to the Matt.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, I'm going to call back on Ms. Talbot to provide an answer to Councillor Handley.
For you, Mr. Mayor, the allocation or distribution of costs for transit are consistent with all the other regional services. It's based on the assessment value of your homes. So there's a proportion that each municipality pays based on that assessment value. If I look quickly, I can tell you that Thorold currently pays 4.1% of the total transit costs. On a per capita basis, I can come back with those numbers, but it does vary because it's based on the assessment values of the home, and it's consistent with all other regional services.
Okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, if you could come back with that, because that'd be interesting, because I always, see that, one person's paying $1 and another person's paying $2. Because what I'm going to ask secondly is there already a preliminary mapping system of where the bus routes will actually be in Thorold? Because as you may be well aware of, Thorold makes up of several municipalities and we're separated by the Welland Canal. And from what I can see on the preliminary mapping is that it looks to be servicing just the Port Robinson West area and doesn't include the Allenburg or the Thorold South routes. So if that's the case, and from what I'm seeing presently, then the city would still have to, on an offset, in order to accommodate their own citizens, hire or build their own transit to get the people from Allenburg, Port Robinson East, and Thorold South to the main transit hub. Because from what I see, it comes straight down Highway 50, Thorold Stone Road through the tunnel, and then on the west side of the canal. I don't see any on the east side of the canal from the preliminary mapping from what you presented tonight, sir. So is there actually mapping specific?
I'll let Matt answer that.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, the map that you see before you is predicated on the existing service and many of the mainline routes that exist now. There are some future expansions which we show that are things like connecting municipalities between Port Colborne and Fort Erie, let's say, or adding another GO stop at Brock University. The detail in which you're referencing about certain areas within your municipality, those are taken into account within the City of Thorold's Transportation Master Plan. And in looking at the report before you, I see that those expansion components, which are identified in Thorold's TMP, would be then looked at in the larger service plan that is developed by the new commission into the future. So I think what's coming and what we've heard, having done now 12 of 13 municipalities, is some type of articulation of how each of those TMPs across Niagara come together and start to show some type of service plan prior to us coming back for the triple majority. So the detail's not there now, councillor. It's something we've heard as we need to look at some of these existing strategic documents and try and weave those together to give some assurances to various municipalities that we're aware and that the new commission can expand in those places going forward.
Okay, if I could just comment on that just one step further, Mr. Mayor, then I wish that you would take into consideration then our largest development in Thorold, the Rolling Meadows development. Presently, if you're using and going by the metrics of the current route, other than the transit that we supply the city that we pay over and above, and we send the 20 passenger out there, that's going to be our biggest hub in Thorold. That needs to be addressed to me. So And where's that route? Down Moyer Road, down Allenport Road into the Highway 58 corridor. We're looking at a residential base of 10,000 people, 3,500 homes. That needs to be part of this corridor. If you're looking at making a master plan, because currently as a counselor, what I presently see is the same service we presently have. It's not expanding none. We're not taking care of some issues we even presently have as a municipality. And if we don't take care of them through this master plan, I feel, then we're going to have to deal with them ourselves as a municipality, which is going to add more cost to the tax base. I have no further comments or questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hanley. I got Councillor Sentence. Go ahead, Councillor Sentence. You're muted. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hit it 100 times. Through you, I agree 100% with Councillor Hanley. That was my concern as to where we were going to branch out to our, our outskirts, call them, that everybody in Thorold should be able to catch a bus if they have to get to work or wherever they want to go to. So please, Matt, keep that in consideration with anything you want us to, agree with or go with. That has to be addressed for those areas. In my mind. I was just wondering, it was a great presentation. Could you touch on what you mean by on demand? I've heard different things for what on demand means between cabs, or is this new transit commission going to provide the vehicles for on demand?
Go ahead, Matt.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, two questions there. Don't let me forget the latter one, which is, will the commission provide on-demand transit in general? The model, so you have conventional transit or fixed route service, which has a defined path that it follows using typically a 30, 40, 60-foot bus that travels in that pattern throughout the municipality. There are specific stops where that large bus stops every 15, 30, 60, 90 minutes.
Right.
And that there is a schedule. That is currently what many municipalities have. Many smaller municipalities where that can be 2 hours to make its way through the entire geography of a town and then only pick up half a dozen people in the course of a day. Those municipalities have realized that they can provide better coverage to the entire municipality by moving to an on-demand or micro-transit solution. And what that does is allow for an algorithm-based shared ride service where, using an app on your phone, you can hail a ride. You select a ride, and within, depending on the time frame you set in terms of your service hours, anywhere between 15, 20, 30, 60 minutes, once you call for a ride, it'll designate where you are to go, whether that's the end of your driveway or the corner of your street. It identifies that Matt, the NRT on-demand driver, is arriving and gives you a plate number, and you basically pick that up within the allocated time, whether that's 15 minutes, as I said. So it's from corner to corner, or in some cases door to door, depending on the cross section of the road. In an urban area, that is very much corner to corner. You share a ride, they pick up 2 other people on our way to the mall or the LCBO or wherever we happen to be going. Likewise, in a more rural cross section where there aren't sidewalks, that's where it's unsafe to do so, to walk on the side or on the shoulder. That's where the NRT on-demand vehicle would pick up passengers at the end of their driveway. So more municipalities are moving to that on-demand model that says, I want a ride in 15 minutes, and it will hail my vehicle, and I will go and meet that vehicle on my terms where it indicates that I'm to be picked up. Subsequently, in the second part of your question, Councillor, was around will the future commission deploy that model? What I can say is that I'm trying hard in these presentations not to bind or commit the future entity, future commission, to any levels of service or type of service. But what I can say is Niagara Region currently deploys an on-demand service in multiple municipalities as part of our complement of service. We have specialized, conventional, and on-demand service. The new commission would inherit existing services, routes, and everything else. bring those together. And I would envision that going forward, that type of proven transit in rural municipalities will likely prevail well into the future.
Okay, well, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's when I'm thinking of Thorold South, St. John's, Allenburg, Port Robinson. An integrated system within Thorold itself might be a better aspect for people who want to get rides and not have to wait 2 hours before one comes. So keep that in mind too, please. Thank you. Great presentation.
Councillor Neal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, through you to Matt. The commission itself, I believe there's 5 regional councilors going to sit on it, plus another 5 or 6 people, I forget how many. We from Thorold need at least one person on that commission, since we have an established transit system in Thorold. And although we're not one of the 3 major players, we are pretty close to being one. So we do need someone on there other than staff, and because I know staff will be part of it. But I think we need at least one regional councilor or one of the 2 or 3 people from our particular community to sit on the commission to make sure these things are brought forward. Councillor Hanley brought up one thing that I wanted to bring up, and that was expanding the system in Thorold to make sure that we cover all the areas of our community. And the Presto card is a great card. I spent 4 months going across England, Scotland, and Wales on the transit systems, and they're fantastic. And I also went to Italy and spent 2 weeks going across Italy on their transit system. And this regional aspect is perfect, going all the way to Toronto and back in a single day, for instance. So I like the presentation. I'm glad we're doing it, and let's move forward on it.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. I think I had Councillor Long go up. Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the presenter, Mr. Robinson. Thanks very much. A lot of information here to absorb. My first question is, what are you looking from the city of Thorold tonight? Just for us to receive this information?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, and I may defer as well to the CAO in terms of the staff report. I think from my perspective, in terms of what I have presented here tonight, I would presume with the staff report that comes after my presentation that you would simply receive the presentation. Subsequently, there are recommendations laid out in the staff report, PWCS 2021-13, which do lay out some concerns and that support in principle, which is what the Linking Niagara Transit Committee is seeking.
Okay, thank you very much. My next question for you is, one of the slides mentioned this is a cost-effective way to deliver transit, yet you showed some numbers that showed that the city of Thorold would spend about $800,000 more by the year 2027. So although we may get more services, how can we look at that as being cost-effective? Can you explain that?
Go ahead, Matt.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, that was actually in regard to the type of model. So in terms of the different models of transit delivery, whether that's a partial commission, a full commission, a regional department, across Ontario, the most efficient cost per ride of all of our peer jurisdictions are operated using the full commission model. So I don't want to suggest that it's going to be less expensive than the status quo. It's less expensive in the long term comparative to other models of transit governance.
Okay, thank you. And I guess my final question, you're probably aware in the city of Thorold, transit in Brock University can be a contentious issue sometimes, and I don't want to turn it into one here. But how is Brock University and their student union, are they partnering in this in any way?
Go ahead, Matt.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, they are a key stakeholder. The Brock University Students Union, Brock University Administration, likewise with our other post-secondary institution, Niagara College, at both levels. They are a key stakeholder. They are a significant rider of transit, and therefore are a key contributor to not only how the governance shapes going forward, But as many of us who are operating transit currently know, students do contribute financially to the existing system. We would envision that that financial contribution, given the volume of students that participate in usage, would continue to increase as ridership and volume increases and the system expands going forward.
So thank you for that answer. So I guess my final question would be then proportionately, the city of Thorold could have about a 40% increase in transit costs over the next 6 years. So would Brock University Student Union have a 40% to be comparable in picking up the tab for transit?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm actually going to have Ms. Talbot respond to that. She can speak to the intricacies perhaps of the UPass and how we see that UPass growth in the future.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, from what I understand with the UPass in Brock University as well as Niagara College, is that they pay for services that are directly related to servicing their students. So any services that are incremental to drive towards driving students towards Brock, they pay for those additional services. The strategy that the region was working with Niagara College was consistent with that same strategy, that services that were 1 hour or 30-minute services, those were regional services. Anything that was required in addition to that 30-minute service level was paid for directly by the college. And so if that continues in the future as we move forward, then the college and the universities would be required or would form a contract to cover their direct costs related to that service increase. And there shouldn't be a net tax increase as a result of those service levels.
Any further questions, Councillor Longo? Okay, I got Councillor Kenny. And then we got to get, when we get this report on the floor, you can ask questions on the report.
Yeah, I would just like to know, part of his presentation, he spoke that it was Maria saw the presentation. I guess my question is more on the process, like Councillor Longo asked. Are we going to meet separately and we're going to get Maria's thoughts on this and be more informed? Because to be honest, I don't understand all the financial implications. I don't know if she wants to comment now or maybe in an in-camera meeting, or how's that process going to work?
I can ask Maria if she wants to comment now or wait for the report to come on the phone.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, we certainly can come back to council if you so wish to provide you with an update. We have kind of touched on a little bit of the numbers, within the presentation and also within the report. I think at the outset, our levy pretty much is what we're paying right now. So that's the outset. Then it sort of ramps up as we go forward to account for for inflation, for growth, for things like that. But if council so wishes, sure, we can pull something together and come back to you with another report.
Okay, Councillor Kenny.
Thank you.
Okay, and we're going to bring the report. You got one more? You got another question, Councillor DeRose?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just one more short one. Matt, have you guys ever considered teaming up with, I know Innisfil has done it and it's been successful for the rural ridership, for example, St. John's, Allenburg, Port Robinson, Thorold South. Have you guys discussed ever utilizing the Uber? I know Innisfil has done it and it's been pretty successful. Thank you.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yep, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. Simply put, yes, and that's what NRT On Demand is. So we use a different company than Uber. It's called Via Mobility. They are the ones who operate an Uber-like or on-demand transit in West Niagara and Niagara-on-the-Lake. So Niagara-on-the-Lake has bought into the NRT On Demand. NRT On Demand services the 5 municipalities out in West Niagara, providing both intermunicipal, funded by the region, and local trips funded by each of the municipalities.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, can I get a mover and a seconder to bring forward PWCS 2021-13? I got a mover, Counselor Sentence, seconder, Counselor Neal. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Now I'll PWCS 2021-13. I have a mover, Counselor Longo, and a seconder, Counselor Sentence, and I'll turn this over to our Director of Public Works, Jeff Holman. Jeff, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is one, that the presentation made to Thorold City Council on the Niagara Transit Governance Study be received. Two, that council support in principle the initiative to move to a full commission governance model. Three, that final approval be subject to the satisfactory resolution of the following conditions. A, clarification of the city's required contribution during transition and beyond. And B, confirmation that the service plan will maintain existing service and include service expansion to the high growth areas of the community as identified in the Thorold Transportation Master Plan that we approved in June of 2020.
Thank you, Jeff. Is there any questions for Jeff? Seeing none, all those in favor? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Longo. Did you want to speak or?
Yes, please. Yes, I'd like to speak, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to refer this question to the Director of Finance, please. There's, in our presentation, we were told that there was some conversation with Director of Finance, I believe, regarding resolving some of these issues, some clarification. Can you explain what was done and what that?
Go ahead, Maria.
Through Mr. Mayor, certainly the original report that was circulated to the local area municipalities showed Thorold's contribution at the outset of over $2 million. We have discussed that with the region, and the adjustment has been made to reflect that our current levy is in the $600,000 range.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Director of Finance, just a bit of clarification there. They showed a slide with a $1.99 million contribution from the city of Thorold by the end of 2027. Is that the updated slide or is that an old slide?
I believe that is the current slide. I think if you look at the first box in their slide, it shows the 628,000, which is the Thorold levy portion, along with, I think it was 580,000, which is the Thorold portion of the regional Niagara transit system for the $1.2 million. So that is the current numbers updated. The slide is, I believe, showing escalation for inflation, picking up for growth areas, and I think they had some transition costs as well, but certainly Matt or Heather could clarify that better than I.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I need to ask more questions here, Mr. Mayor, because I'm unsure about this report, so I'll keep firing away, I guess. Or maybe I'll make a comment. I'm uncomfortable supporting this increase. I know transit loses money. It's never a money maker. But as Councillor Sentence and Councillor Neal and Councillor Hanley mentioned, are we getting new services out in our rural parts of Thorold? And it sounds like maybe not, yet we're spending a substantial amount more for transit. And I know it's intermunicipal and it's regional and so on, but I'm a little concerned here. Will I support this? In principle, yes, but I'm not quite sure if that puts us in a bind by saying we support it in principle and now we need to come back and support it when the final report comes. So that's just my comment. A little uncomfortable with the whole report. Thank you.
Did you want to respond to that, Maria? Because tonight we're not making a decision on that, are we? We're accepting the report and the clarification will be coming forward. That's two of the conditions, in my understanding. Am I right? And I'll turn that over to Director of Finance.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I certainly, yes. When the report was prepared, staff did identify that we still do have some number of concerns that require resolution, and that our support is based on the successful or the positive resolution of some of those items. And, you know, the report outlines in details what some of our concerns are in that respect.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Wait, let's do it again. All those in favor? Let's see your hand so the clerk can count them, please.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm just double checking. Sorry. We're not voting to pass this, right? Like what Councilor Longo just said?
No, we're not. What Maria said is, if you read the resolution, it says the final approval is subject to the satisfactory resolution of the following conditions. So we're not approving that tonight, okay?
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just confused why we're approving it. I just echoing what Councilor Longo said. Does that mean that we're then committed to it? Like, that's what I'm confused about. It was a great presentation and answered a lot of questions. I agree with what some of the other councilors brought forward.
No, that's a good point, but I'll get Jeff and Maria to comment on that so you're clear. Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think the key here is that based on the information that Matt and his team is providing here, it appears as though the full commission model is the most cost-effective way to deliver this service. And if you can recall our transportation master plan, one of the recommendations we had was to reach out to existing service providers and look at more efficient ways to operate our system so we can enhance existing routes and also extend to our growth areas. So I think the key is recommendation number 2. But we also said, well, wait a second, we're not all the way in because we still really need to see how the new service plan under the commission model is going to best serve residents of Thorold. So in that sense, and I know it's, you know, approving something in principle is always complicated, but the 2 items that we identified as being kind of outstanding, the first one, clarification, I think that's been resolved. But the service plan is going to be critical to our final decision when it comes for the triple majority vote, whether we're all in on this.
Maria, did you want to comment at all?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think that covers it.
Go ahead, Councilor Long.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'll maybe clarify now that I've had that explanation. I just don't want to be put in a position where somebody says, you support it in principle, now you need to go ahead. Because that's happened to us in the past, where we've done something in principle and then told that, well, you said you were going to, and now you're not. Now, if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. I'll support this in principle, but we still have the ability to reject it if we don't like what we see in the future. And I will support this in principle.
That's my understanding. Is that your as well, Jeff? Yeah.
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay. So all those in favor?
I got a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councilor Kenny.
When you speak of a triple majority, we can actually down the road vote this down and be bought into it. Is that correct?
No. You want to explain triple majority to the clerk?
I'm thinking,
Matt, you want to explain?
So many cities, so many votes, and okay, go ahead. I want it explained. If it's a problem,
Matt will explain it.
Good.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, I appreciate the question coming from Councillor Kenny. I'm actually going to call on Scott Fraser, who has worked with the legal team, and he can explain to council the nuances of the triple majority process.
Thank you, Matt. Through you, Mayor. So the triple majority process, which will be coming back in the summer. So the process we're undertaking right now is to receive this feedback from all the local area municipalities. and then respond to the feedback we received with revised both financial and governance models that reflect what we've heard. We'd be then coming back later in the summer or early fall for a triple majority vote. In order to achieve that triple majority vote, 3 conditions need to be achieved. One being that a majority of regional council vote in favor of moving forward. The second one being that a majority of the local area councils vote to move forward. And that of the ones that do vote to move forward, they represent a majority of the electors across the region. So it's a little bit different than just residents and by population, the number of eligible electors to vote.
Okay, Councillor Kenny, go ahead.
Yes, that was my point. I've been involved in other triple majority votes, and we can actually turn this down, but get involved because we have no choice.
Okay, is that explanation? Okay, we're gonna vote. Anyone else? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Did you get that? Okay. Thank you again, Matt, for the presentation and the crew from the region. And thank you, Councillor Whalen, for chiming in, Regional Councillor Whalen. Okay, we're going to move back into the agenda now. Consent reports. I have a mover, Councillor DeRose, seconder, Councillor Wilson, that council approve the following consent reports. Before I do that, does anyone want to pull a consent report? Councillor Neal, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, CC 2021-09, the council correspondence. I have a number of items I'd like to refer to different places.
What one again, please? Sorry.
CC 2021-09.
Okay. Is there anyone else want to pull a consent report? Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
You, Mr. Mayor, 2021-12, PWCS 2021-12, 13.
Yep. Number
12 and 14.
And Councillor Hanley. We might as well do them one at a time. Councillor Hanley, I can't hear you. You're muted there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. CAO 2021-03 and Public Works CS 2021-12.
Okay, we're going to go through them one at a time because we got almost all of them now that have been pulled. So I'll start with the first one. I got a mover, Councillor DeRose, seconder, Councillor Wilson, CAO 2021-03, that council approved the attached new policy, public code of conduct. Go ahead, Councillor Hanley, you wanted to speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For clarification. So this is more or less if someone was to come to City Hall or someone was to call City Hall, and the way the treatment would be outlaid to a staff member, they could then internally file a complaint, and that person could more or less be put on a suspension or be denied entry to our premises or any contact with city staff. Is this more or less going to be a procedure in regards to putting restraining orders against individuals?
Who wants to answer that, the clerk or the CAO?
Through Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Handley, there is no restraining order here. So the intent.
I realize that, but I'm saying, is this your public policy? Is it? I know it's in regards to protecting staff from workplace harassment or harassment from outside the workplace. But what's the procedure? Okay, someone happens here. What's the purpose of this? Is this to banish people from City Hall, to deny them access to City Hall? If we do that, then you have to put a restraining order against somebody. what's the general purpose of this bylaw? What's the intent of it, if I could ask?
Want to speak to that, Donna?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the intent of the policy is that it's basically setting out how to treat city staff with respect. It talks to if you attend a city facility and your behavior is deemed inappropriate, then you could be asked to leave the premise. And then if you disagree with that, then there's appeal process to follow through the CAO's office. And it also talks about how staff is going to respond to different instances where people are coming off a bit more aggressive or strong.
Okay, thank you and that stuff. I know that we've had some issues in the past, and I'm just wondering if this is more or less a step to try to alleviate that and curtail that type of behavior. So I'm seeing that what it is. I just want a clear explanation as to what, if we were looking to actually have people charged with trespassing or forbidden from coming to City Hall.
Thank you, Councillor Hanley. Councillor DeRose.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I totally agree with protecting staff from abuse directed at them. But I just a couple questions, because these are questions that people have forwarded to me. Do we have any, like, is this a prevalent problem? Do we have any data stats to shed some light in the occurrences of perceived transgressions towards staff? Like, I'm just curious for my own knowledge also. People have asked me that. Do we have numbers, any data to say like 10% of interactions are being abusive, or so to staff? If anybody can answer that, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think we have any data. I would say majority, if not all, residents who interact with the city staff, they're polite, their behavior is appropriate. It is just to protect the city staff in case if we do get odd residents who are irate at times, to protect city staff from that. Additionally, that there are criticism on social media as well, criticizing staff or calling names and all, just to protect city staff. And it is in continuation with the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and making sure that we provide a safe and acceptable working environment for staff. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor DeRose, go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Now, we've got a criminal code and a provincial offenses act. Does this override them? That's what I don't understand. I always thought there was things in place already to protect staff, but I guess I'm wrong. Or can someone explain? Can CEO explain that? Just because does this override criminal code and the provincial offenses act?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if there is a criminal proceedings, of course, police get involved and they will take care of it. This is if somebody starts shouting, yelling at staff and trying to threaten them when they have come to the city hall. And also on the other note, on the social media, they start criticizing staff and spreading fake news and sort of affect the reputation of a staff member. And that's to protect them. That's the intent of it. So yes, if it is a criminal proceeding, police will get involved and other stuff is there. And if somebody threatens, of course, we can file a police complaint and all those things. But this is, as I said, most of the residents that we interact with, they are, they do the business very well with us, but it is just to protect the city staff. So I think I can forward it to Donna if she needs to comment on it. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to add that this type of policy would be in line with Bill 168 and the corporation's responsibility to protect staff and have appropriate policies in place.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the appropriate staff member, maybe Nozier Donna. I'm just wondering, when I read this, I was wondering if it's appropriate to include council. It names staff, but should council not be part of this as well?
I think that is in their code of conduct and council.
I can start with this, through you, Mr. Mayor. Initially, we thought to include council as well, but then the reason we didn't include council in it is because council are elected representatives of the public, and they have all the right to, communicate with them the way they feel. So that is the reason we stopped short of it. I'll again,
Oh,
forward
but
it to
that's-
Donna. Del
If
Vecchio,
I can
clerk.
comment, council has a certain responsibility in their interaction with staff, and it's in our code of conduct. Am I not correct?
No, not us as council interacting with staff. It's the public interacting with members of council. I was just wondering if council would not be included in this for, some sort of structure, I guess, for members of the public to obviously conduct themselves appropriately and not, like, I don't know if as an elected official, if we have any rights to in the violence and harassment. Obviously, we're not employees, but that was just my thought when I read it.
Good point. Good point. Do you want to comment on that? All right.
Through Mr. Mayor, the template that we have looked at from other municipalities only covered staff, not include council. When we started the process, our intention was to include both council and staff. But then when we looked at it, it was only meant for staff. And I think the understanding is that as an elected representative, council, I don't think so can be covered as a part of this policy. So, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Councillor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I think that this is great that they finally came up with this public code of conduct. I've been at the other end of harassment and bullying, working with the public. So hopefully this will deter people the way they treat staff. I do sort of wonder with what Councillor Wilson said as to why we were not included in that, because I believe we should be treated the same and that we shouldn't have to put up with, any type of inappropriate behavior or, inappropriate conduct. So I fully support this. I'm just wondering if this is, something that should be looked at or looked into for staff, for counselors as well.
So if I need a motion then to do that. We can defer the report and staff can come back with more information regarding that, but I need someone that hasn't spoken to the report to bring that forward. Councillor Sentence, a seconder. Councillor Neal. There's no debate on a deferral, so they're going to defer that back to staff, or is it refer or defer? Refer back to staff to investigate about the including of council, okay? And they'll report back. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so that'll come back with that. PWCS 2021-09. No one pulled that. Does anyone want to speak to that report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Nobody pulled PWCS 2021-11. Does anyone want to speak to that? Councillor Wilson, did you want to speak to that? Go ahead.
Yes, please. I believe this is the part that's fenced off along DQ Road. Is that correct?
That,
along the waterway?
no, Beaver Dams Village Park is at the end of K Avenue. When you drive into Beaver Dams and you go into Beaver Dams, am I right when I say that? Is that the park we're talking about?
Oh, okay, never mind then. Sorry, I apologize.
Okay, that's at the end of K Avenue. You know where I mean? Does anybody need, Jeff, do you want to speak on that? I just want to make clear, and we got that right in everybody's mind.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. It's OPG land that we've been leasing for a long time. It's just a lease renewal.
Okay. So all these motions, just so when I get to each one, it's a mover, Councillor DeRose, seconder, Councillor Wilson. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. PWCS 2021-12. And this was pulled. This is the council award the contract for architectural and engineering design services for the new Fire Station 1 project to G. Douglas Valet Limited at a cost of $233,403 plus HST. Jeff, do you want to speak to that first, or do you want just to?
Mr. Mayor, we've taken it through our RFP process. Sorry. Yeah, we've taken it through our RFP process. It's the best bid that based on the work plan and the value for the corporation. They are the firm that did the concept plan and did a lot of the site work that helped us make the decision about which property we should purchase. So we'd like to get started on that, and hopefully we'll have their Class A cost estimate available in time for budget deliberation this year.
Okay, so Councillor Hanley, you pulled that, I think, didn't you? And you want to speak to that? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Jeff. When are we projecting the start date to be of the actual construction of the building?
Well, Mr. Mayor, that'll be a decision the council will have to make once we make a decision on the funding and how we want to move ahead. If we get the cost estimate and then come up with a financial plan to fund it, we could start construction, I guess, fairly soon after we make that decision. So it would be, we'd have to go to tender. It's about a 6-week process. If you wanted to start construction, it would be late in Q4 of this year, and would probably take the better part of a year for construction.
Go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
Okay, just follow that. On that note, Mr. Mayor, then thank you. If we were to look at Q4 then as possible start date, and on the financial aspect of it, I know you said that we'd have to do a report. Do we have any estimated where we may get these funds from, or it'll be a decision that'll be determined on development charges and reserves and so on?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think I need to defer to our Director of Finance for that one. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mark.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Presently, it's not in the 2021 budget, so we would have to come back with a report. Based on my recollection, a portion of it only was eligible for funding through development charges. It's not the whole thing. There is a portion that is deemed to be existing benefit, which is the value of the fire station that's being replaced. There is a balance depending on the amount that the actual estimate comes out at. There is a balance that will have to be internally funded. We do not have sufficient reserves to fund the project. And then that, of course, would carry a servicing cost that would hit the levy next year.
Okay, Councillor Hanley. The other thing is,
thank you very much.
As well, that once we have these drawings and we're shovel ready, we can also look at if there's any funding opportunities from upper levels of government.
Just one last comment, Mayor. Just that I asked these questions only because my concern is that we're still playing catch up with $16 million worth of projects from 2020. We got another $8 million worth of projects on the table for 2021. So, if we're going to continue to throw more projects onto the table, what are we going to be neglecting down the road? That's just my biggest concern.
Okay, Chief Dixon, did you want to chime in on this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council, just a brief overview for all council to understand my thought process on this back when we did the in-camera process, and the timelines that we talked about was either 2022 or 2023 to build. This process here, I am looking to hopefully have the detailed design drawings and cost evaluation done by the end of the year to be able to say we are shovel ready by the end of 2021, so we can apply for grants and whatever might come forward in the future here. The ultimate goal would be to build sometime in 2022 to be able to move in 2023. Now, that's just me as the fire chief saying that that's what I would like to see us move towards. But that's my views on it at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor DeRose, did you have a question?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to the appropriate staff. I'm all fine with this. I just find it hard to swallow that $250,000 is just going to go to the, I know the importance of the design, the costing. Is there going forward? Okay, so this is a done deal and it's great stuff, Jeff. But is there ever any talk of there's 4,000 and just bear with me while I give you my train of thought. There's 4,000 fire halls in Canada. Does anybody ever say, well, let's look at a similar design that might fit our location and our needs? That's a newer model. Is there ever any consideration to do that and share costs with another community, or to buy their design? And of course, costing would have to still be done. I understand that, but I'm just going forward. And this is just a question that was at the back of my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeRose. Councillor Long, did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I wanted an answer on that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were making.
Yeah, I just asked. That's what I'm asking. Is it possible going down the road? Is that a possibility, or is it just too specific? Each individual project so specific that you can't vary from a similar. You know, there's 4,000 of them. There's got to be one that's going to be similar to the one we build. So I'm just, Jeff, can you answer that possibly going forward?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I don't think there is a cookie cutter design. In fact, that's why we went through the whole initial process of developing a concept plan, which looks at the needs of Thorold, the future needs of Thorold, and where and what services we're going to be providing. You know, for example, in this case, we're going to be adding in the EOC into this structure. So, yeah, I suppose if we look hard enough, we might find something similar. But I think when it comes to the detailed design, there's site-specific issues that need to be taken into consideration. So proximity to the on-ramp is going to be a factor as to where we site the building, the drainage, the servicing. It's all going to be a little bit different. And so by the time you add that all in, I think what we're looking for is what we're getting, which is something that is specific to us. And it's going to work for us based on the features that the fire chief is asking to have included in this building.
Thank you, Jeff.
Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the appropriate staff member. Chief Dixon gave us, I guess, an ideal timeline that he'd like to see met. My concern is if we don't meet that timeline, let's say, unfortunately, things get expensive and it's stretched out another 2 years. Is this design, and I know the costing won't be relevant, but is it going to cost us, another $200,000 3 years from now if we don't build it right away? I'm just concerned about that. If somebody can enlighten me.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think we could look at some inflationary costs associated with delaying a decision, and also costs associated with trying to retrofit the existing fire hall, which needs some immediate attention to deal with some AODA issues that we're trying to manage and trying to stretch out the best we can. So yes, if we get a cost later this year and we don't build it shortly thereafter, we should be planning to add in additional inflationary costs somewhere in the neighborhood of 3%.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holman. You brought up a good point there about the existing fire hall. I guess we're probably looking sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Longo. Okay, any more questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. PWCS 2021-15. Again, it's the same mover and seconder. Does anyone want to speak on this? This is the generator at City Hall. Go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Oh, I've got the wrong one, Mr. Mayor. I didn't want to ask about that. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, so Counselor DeRosa movers, again, seconder, Counselor Wilson. Anyone want to speak to that? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. CC 2021-09, that council receive and file the items listed in the city clerk's report, and we pulled this because Councillor Neal wanted to speak to something in this report. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. There's 4 items on the list of correspondence that I would like to send to different parts of the city. The Fire College in Port Colborne, I like a report done by our fire chief in order to come back with a recommendation on whether to move forward and be part of that process. The second one is the OPG firearms. I'd like that referred to the Lake Gibson Conservation Committee for further report back on that. The Growing the Green Belt consultations, I like that to be sent to the proper department to talk about MZO orders and what the province seems to be on board with the Greenbelt legislation, but their actions are contrary to what they're stating in this particular report. And the last one is the long-term care, Ontario long-term care crisis. I like that sent to age-friendly committee for comment.
Okay. Did we grab those 4 things? Okay, number 1 is a fire-related issue. Does Chief Dixon want to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, what I can update council on is the Ontario Fire College, since COVID has come into place, has been closed. But over the past few years, it's been declining in the amount of people that have been using the college. I think where we stand with the Ontario Fire College right now, the province has closed the Fire College permanently now. There is being a little bit of pushback from some municipalities regarding the closure of the Ontario Fire College. From my perspective, in our area, in the Niagara area in general, it's not really too big of an issue for us. We train our firefighters very well now in-house, and then we use sites in Fort Erie and in Grimsby to do other training that we can't do here locally in Thorold. However, saying that, when we do have other courses that we can go to the fire college, where the discrepancy comes in is we were able to send firefighters to the fire college for $65. Now, this is where the controversy comes in. The $65 per firefighter to go to the fire college, that included your room and board, that includes your food. It was a very cheap way to do business. We would pay, from the city's point of view, we would pay mileage, that sort of stuff. When you do now from a regional site, you would pay the full cost of the course. So now you're talking probably $300 and some odd, possibly for some courses per firefighter to take that course. So the controversy there is the province subsidized the fire college to put firefighters through it. How are we paying for that now? So those are the conversations we're having right now. But for the most part, it doesn't really affect Thorold in reality to the closure of the fire college. Thank you.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Neal, do you still want to pull this item for support at the next meeting? Are you satisfied with that?
I'm satisfied with that.
Thank you.
Okay. The OPG one?
The OPG firearms, there's going to have to be a full public consultation when it's safe to do so. So definitely Lake Gibson Preservation Task Group will be included as a major stakeholder in that area.
Does that answer your concerns, Councillor Neal?
Yes.
Okay. But we're still receiving these reports. What was the third one? The Greenbelt.
The Greenbelt, the report back, or the report from the provincial government states one thing, but they're doing the opposite to what they're stating in their report. So I would like to give that to staff to discuss that and bring back a recommendation.
Okay,
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Counselor Neal, this is the letter from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Is this the one you're referring to? And it talks about a consultation period open until April 19th?
That's correct.
So perhaps it might be that we could bring a staff report back with comment that we can submit during the consultation period.
we should do that for the next meeting so that we can submit it, correct?
Either that or their first meeting in April, whichever you choose.
Yeah, okay. We will do that, Counselor.
Thank you.
And what was the fourth? Was
On
there?
long-term care at the bottom of the page, the Ontario long-term care crisis. I think that should go to the age-friendly committee for discussion.
I think we already did.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we already have this going to the age-friendly committee at our meeting in March. I wanted council to receive this information first. It's also going to be going to our Thorold Seniors Association for their information.
Good, thank you.
Counselor Longo, I seen your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm doing this one for you. I saw it earlier in the week. I forgot about it. The letter from the town of Lincoln regarding securing recycling bins and contents. And I'd like to support this and send a letter to the region saying that we support it. And this has to do with a way for the region to have better ways for people to recycle and secure their bins, so we don't have our neighborhoods turn into a mess on windy days. And that's for you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. You know that's near and dear to my heart, right? So you've got that. Do we need a motion on the Greenbelt staff report though? Okay. We'll need a motion on that. Yeah, and
I'll move it then.
we got a mover, Counselor Neal, and a seconder, Counselor DeRose, on staff bringing back a report on the Greenbelt consultation. Do you want to, I'll let you read it because I want to make sure I got this right.
Moved by Counselor Neal, seconded by Counselor DeRose, that planning staff be directed to prepare comments with regard to the growing of the Greenbelt no later than the first meeting in April.
Okay, any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried, and we need a motion on the support, letter of support for Lincoln. Mover Counselor Longo on that, seconder. I've got Counselor DeRose that we support Lincoln's letter and send it to the region. Am I correct, Counselor Longo? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Okay. So now, again, we're going to vote on the full report, CC 2021-09, that council receive and file the items listed in the city clerk's report, subject to the changes that we made, and the movers, Counselor DeRose, seconder, Counselor Wilson. All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. CC 2021-12. Nobody pulled that. That staff be authorized to apply for $250,000 in funding from the Canadian Healthy Communities Initiative from the Government of Canada to fund the Welland Canal Trail resurfacing project. Again, I got a mover, Counselor DeRose, and a seconder, Counselor Wilson. Although, anyone want to speak to that? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. CC 2021-13, that staff be authorized to apply for $48,750 in funding from the Municipal Modernization Program to fund a cemetery service delivery review. And again, mover, Counselor DeRose, seconder, Counselor Wilson. Who pulled this one? Counselor DeRose, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to know, is this an audit or an independent third party? Is it like an audit, or I was just a little confused? Thank you.
Who wants to speak to that?
Yeah, is it an audit to run more efficiently? Is that what it is, Jeff? Sorry, thank you.
through you, Mr. Mayor. What we're looking forward to doing is conduct a service delivery review. So it'll look at everything from our the fees that we charge, the operations, whether we have the right manpower, equipment, what the trends are in the funeral industry. Do we need to build a mausoleum or columbaria, or do we need more land? It's a kind of a comprehensive review of what we're doing and where we're going. And I think it'll give us better direction on some of the investments we need to make over the next 10 years.
Okay, Councillor DeRose, these are funds that are available from the provincial government on, they're big on this solar service delivery review. So I would imagine that this is pending that we do receive funding. Am I correct, Jeff?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. It was on our deferral list. We weren't able to fund it. So hopefully with this additional funding, we'll be able to get started.
Anyone else? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And the last one in consent reports is CC 2021-14, that staff be authorized to apply for funding from the Greenbelt Foundation to fund construction of the DQ Road Trail. Again, a mover, Councillor DeRose, seconder, Councillor Wilson. And I don't know who pulled this, but I got it circled. But go ahead, Councillor DeRose.
Yeah, I did, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just a quick question. Does this application imply that we're already in an agreement with Glenn Gordon, or is this project, or my second question, is this project dependent on the Greenbelt Foundation funding?
I'll turn that over again to Jeff.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So yes, I committed to bringing back a report to council to talk about the proposal from Glenn Gordon, and that'll be ready for us on the 23rd. This application is to file a letter of interest to the Greenbelt group, who will consider our application. If we can access this funding, it will help offset the city's portion, the city's contribution towards the project. We may not have the answers all in time, but yeah, I think the criteria for the project seem to fit what was being proposed on the DQ Trail.
And
go ahead,
through you, Mr. Mayor. Jeff, should I just wait for this question? But I'm just wondering if we do approve this trail, who's going to be financially responsible for maintenance? Is that something I'm ahead of myself? I should wait for that question, possibly. I'll follow your lead. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I can bring that back as part of the report, but it'll be our infrastructure and we'll be responsible for maintenance.
That would, yeah, I would say so too.
Jeff, is there any way we can get a, maybe from Maria, can you have a number when you do present it, like what it's going to cost yearly to upkeep? Is that possible?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Discussion reports. PWCS 2021-02. Got a mover, Councillor Hanley, and a seconder, Councillor DeRose, and I'll turn this over to our Director of Public Works and Community Services, Jeff Holman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that council approve the recommended traffic and pedestrian safety solutions for the intersection of Chapel Street and Portland Street, developed through the public consultation process and described in the report. And second, that traffic and parking bylaw number 150-2012 be amended to include the heavy vehicle restriction on Linden Street from Welland Street South to Chapel Street South.
Okay, I'll open the floor for questions. Is there any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Senton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Thanks for the report, Jeff. A good report. I like that we're coming up with some solutions. I just had a few requests during the day about if we could look into traffic calming or do a study in the area of Welland back to Ormond for speed purposes, please.
On Portland, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's something that once we've constructed the works, we'll do a post speed study to see we are able to achieve some speed reduction through there. The focus here is going to be primarily pedestrian safety, and with the additional signage and markings, we'll alert motorists that this is a special place. They need to drive carefully. But we also know that it is a shortcut for a lot of people, and sometimes they go way too quickly, particularly in that section on Portland.
Understood. Thank you.
Councillor Neil.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I thought, and this is a good report regarding that specific intersection, is that we had a couple of public meetings and that, but we just didn't discuss the corner of Portland and Chapel Street. We discussed Portland and Welland, and we discussed a number of other streets in the area. And I'm just wondering, are we bringing back reports regarding the rest of it? Because I have a letter, I'm going to read the letter from a certain person that lives in that particular area. And the option before you will be one of 4 that were provided by public information sessions held last year, and for all intent and purposes should be called do nothing. While this proposal may resolve the issue of wrong-way traffic on Chapel Street South between Linden and Portland, the serious traffic issues on Portland have not been addressed. Within the past year, speeding vehicles on Portland Street have been responsible for 2 property damage crashes on Welland Street South as they race to beat the traffic ahead of them in Portland, and a pedestrian being struck while walking his dog on Portland. The dog was killed. We hope you will agree that this traffic problems on Portland Street needs to be and warrant further study. And I thought when we had the public meeting and the report was going to come back regarding the area, including Claremont, where a couple of churches are, just maybe some comments back on what we're going to do about it.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, thanks, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Neil points out, this is really a complex situation here. And when you implement traffic calming, speed humps and stop signs, it has the effect to change the direction of traffic, and it really just pushes a problem from one area to another area. So we have to be careful about those decisions we make. And you may recall when we did our traffic calming policy and our presentation last year, we talked about a number of different tools that we should be using. I'm aware of the concern about the speed of traffic on Portland. But by implementing a lot of controls that redirect traffic, we're really going to be making some people happy and filling the chambers with other people who don't like to have that volume of traffic. I think what we're proposing here is a good start. And I guess the short answer to Councillor Neil's question is, yeah, we're not finished here by any stretch of the imagination. We're looking to reroute some of the traffic off those residential streets, and we need to keep an eye on it. And if the need comes up that we need to implement an all-way stop at Carlton and Portland, or we need to look at speed humps, we have money in this year's budget to make those changes.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Neil.
Mr. Mayor, I think we need another report after they study this further. Maybe give a couple of months as far as what the new things we're putting in there now, and come back with another report regarding what else we can do for specifically Portland Street.
Thank you. Councillor Hanley.
Yes, echoing what Councillor Neil said, it was brought up before. I remember specifically mentioning also, even through the public meeting process, I'm on Ormond Street and Portland Street, putting a stop sign there, 3-way. It's needed. We have Battle of Beaver Dams Park. We're looking to do a significant project at Beaver Dams Park to upgrade it. It's only going to increase the traffic flow. That's the whole intention of it. We're also promoting the Welland Canals Parkway trail system and everything. and here we have a park and people are crossing a road where there's nothing to stop them all the ways from the corner of Pine Street and Richmond Street, all the way to the corner of Ormond Street and Claremont. So not only there along Portland Street, it's a speed trap, but in that area too. And we need to address, as Councillor Neal says, other traffic issues we have in that area, but we can address this first with the report.
Thank you.
As brought forward. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Councillor Neal and then Councillor Hanley, getting back to that. So can we pass the report? And then we can ask that after this gets installed, over a period of time, we bring back a staff report on how those changes have made out and what implementations we can do moving forward to further make safety improvements. Is that what we want? Is that what we're looking for?
That's what I'm asking for.
Okay. Do I need that in the form of a motion? We're going to get an amendment, okay? Go ahead, while we're waiting for the clerk to get that up, Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, I can support that. I would just like, and Councillor Hanley and Neil would probably want the same. Let's put a date of, 3 months or whatever, instead of just saying come back at us. You know what I'm saying? Let it halfway through the summer or whatever. Let's put a date on things so that the residents know we're going to deal with it at a certain time. They're looking for that.
I'll have to ask our director, Jeff, what would be a reasonable time period?
I think the study should be undertaken within a certain period of time upon completion of the capital works, which, could be by the time we finish the water main and the curb work in that area, could be, in the fall of this year. So, and we want to be able to capture, some of the peak times too. So I would say, if the recommendation said that the study be commenced upon, a certain period of time after the completion of construction, and then we'd be able to bring a report back with some recommendations, probably in the, around budget time next year.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Hanley.
No, I was just gonna say, as Councillor Kenny said, if we give them the time, and it'd be great if we waited till after the tourist season. Hopefully we get back to some type of normalcy, and then we'll be able to see, because if we do go back to some type of normalcy, the buses are gonna be coming again. Tourists will be visiting Lock 7 Tourist Center in our museum. So it'll be great. And that if we need to wait for that, then we could tackle it and ask them, maybe put something in place that we need to coming into 2022.
Yeah, because as our director said, that by the time they finish this project, we'll be into the fall, because there's water main and there's work to be done. It's not a little project. Okay. I'll get our clerk to read what she's got.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, a third recommendation would be added that staff be directed to prepare a report within 3 months of the recommended traffic and pedestrian safety solution as outlined in this report have been implemented to measure the success of the project.
3 months of completion.
Thank you.
Okay.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Public Works, is 3 months sufficient amount of time, or do you need longer than that?
3 months from the completion to the director.
That's more than enough time, yes.
Okay, is everybody good with that? So we got 3 points now, the 2 that are there, and can you read the third point one more time so everybody's clear?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the third is that staff be directed to prepare a report within 3 months from the completion of the project of the recommended traffic and pedestrian safety solutions as outlined in this report have been implemented to measure the success of the project.
Okay. Is everybody good with that? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. PWCS 2021-10. I have a mover, Councillor Neal, and the second, Councillor Kenny, and I'll turn that over again to the Director of Public Works and Community Services, Jeff Holman. You're having a busy night here tonight. You're muted. There you go.
Thank you. The recommendation is that council approve the terms and conditions of a license agreement extension with Geo Railway Corporation for the Welland Canal's trail crossing locations as described in the report 2, that funding be allocated from the Capital Asset Transportation Reserve. And 3, that the mayor and clerk, city clerk, be authorized to execute the necessary agreements.
Does anyone want to speak to this? I just have a question for Jeff. Jeff, is when you say Welland Canals Trail, are you talking about the Greater Niagara Circle route?
Yes, I am, Mr. Mayor. I know it has a couple of different names. It's referenced differently in our parks and our parks master plan and our transportation master plan.
Can I get in brackets after Welland Canal Trail to put Greater Niagara Circle route? Are you okay with that? Because that's the way I know it, and that's just for clarity. Is that fine with you if I, well, I have to ask council, would someone have any problem that we put in brackets Greater Niagara Circle route just for clarity? Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll make the change.
So all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We've already done the next one. That was the, now we'll move on to EWCS 2021-16, and I got a mover, Councillor Wilson, second, Councillor Decker, and again, I'll turn this over to our Director of Public Works and Community Services, Jeff Holman.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The recommendation is that the corrected payment schedule, Schedule A, be inserted into the fee-for-service agreement with Thorold Community Activities Group approved by council at its meeting on February 16th, 2021. And second, that an amending bylaw to adopt a new Schedule A be considered at this evening's council.
Okay, is there any questions? It's just a cleanup on amendment on from the original for clarity, okay? And I know that Councillor Sentence has declared a conflict on this one. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. CC 2021-08. I have a mover, Councillor DeRose, seconder, Councillor Hanley, that the following individual be appointed to the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee. And I'll turn this over to our city clerk to go through these.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did email a confidential package to councilors last night with the applications received. So we have received 2 applications to sit on the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee, and there's technically 1 vacancy. If
Go ahead.
council so chooses to select both applicants, then they need to update their terms of reference to reflect 9 at-large members.
Go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know applicant B on there, great Thorold family, great person. I'd like to put his name forward for this committee. I'm not opposed to 2, but I'd like to put his name forward at this moment, please.
Can I get a seconder? Right? No? Okay. Does anyone want to speak to that? Go ahead, Councillor Decker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, can we get a second person? I think there was another candidate.
Would that be up to the committee?
No, if you do select a second, we'd have to come back with revised terms of reference just to outline 9 at-large members. And that would have to be council's decision.
So it's up to council here. Go ahead, Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, Councillor Sentence and myself sit on that committee, and a few times we've had, although we've always had it, we've had problems getting quorum. So I think it would be a good idea if we had 2 people that were willing to volunteer their services, that we should take them both.
Okay, so now, Councillor Sentence, you put a name forward. Do you want to withdraw that? And we put both names forward?
Sure.
Okay, and we change the terms of reference?
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, so that's the motion on the floor, that we accept both names and change the terms of reference for the at our next meeting. Am I correct?
We can just add a B to this, that the terms of reference for the Parks, Trails, and Rec be reflected for 9 at-large members.
Okay, so that's going to be added to this motion. Okay. Anyone that want to speak to that? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I think it's a great thing when we got people that want to be involved like that. Do you want to speak on that? Go ahead.
So the next committee that we have is for the Road Safety Committee, 4 spots and 5 applicants.
Is this a new committee? Mike?
This is a new committee, yes. The other at-large member is whoever is chair of the Active Transportation Committee as well. And of course, Councillor DeRose is your council representative.
So we have 5 applicants. I'll turn this over to council. We have 5 applicants for 4 positions. Go ahead, Councillor Sentence.
I gotta think we take them all again. I was gonna put applicant B forward for the same reasons I said before, but if we have 5 willing to do it, why don't we start fresh with 5?
Is that doable under amending the terms?
We would just have to amend the terms of reference to reflect 5. You can
Okay.
accept them all if that's what you wish to do.
So there's a motion to take all 5 and amend the terms of reference to reflect that. Is there anybody that wants to speak for or against that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And you can go ahead with the third one.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this one's easy. 1 vacancy, 1 application to the Special Events Committee.
Can I get a mover to put that name forward? Councillor Longo, second, or Councillor Wilson? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And I'll get you, do you want to read the names?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So appointed to the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee is Fernando Pasquale and Greg Capillero. To the Road Safety Committee, we have Nick Boza, Greg Capillero, Park Riley, or Philip Park Riley, Tom Bruce, and Matt Tilbrook. And to Special Events Committee, we have Rebecca Lazarenko.
Awesome. Great to see that kind of, especially this road safety committee that we put out there, and the response was awesome. Okay. CC 2021-10, a mover, Councillor Kenny, and a seconder, Councillor Neal. And again, I'll turn this over to our city clerk, Donna Delvecchio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's recommended that City Clerk's report CC 2021-10 be received for information purposes, and that the proposed procedure bylaw attached as Appendix A be presented to council on March 23rd for approval.
Speakers? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. CC 2021-11, mover, Councillor Sentence, seconded, Councillor Decker. And again, I'll turn this over to our city clerk to read.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's recommended that approval be granted to close the portion of the balance of a 10-foot strip of the original road allowance between Thorold Township lots 225 and 226 west of Niagara Street and south of Merritt Road, situated along the frontage of the abutting owners, and to convey the same to the abutting owners subject to any easements. There are easements in this situation. There'll be 3 of them. That all costs associated with the closing and conveyance of the subject portion of the original road allowance and related transfer of easements are the responsibility of the abutting owner. That in accordance with the public notice policy, notice was given on our municipal website on February 17th, 2021. And seeing that this affects only the abutting landowner, the applicant, the requirement to advertise in a local newspaper be waived, as there be no interest from any other party. And that a bylaw to stop up and close part of the road allowance between lots 225 and 226 be presented to council at a future meeting once we have all of the easement documentation from the different utilities. And that concludes the report.
Speakers to the report. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Any notices of motion? Seeing none, there's no closed meeting. We move on to bylaws. First reading of the bylaws, moved by Councillor Longo and seconded by Councillor DeRose, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw 19, 2021, Bylaw 21, 2021, Bylaw 22, 2021, and Bylaw 23, 2021, and that the same now be read a first time. Can we, let's vote on Bylaw 19, 2021, because Councillor Sentence has a conflict. That way he can vote on the other three bylaws. So we're voting on just 19, 2021 first. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Now, Councillor Sentence, you're okay to vote on the last three, which again is moved by Councillor Longo, seconded by Councillor DeRose, that leave be given to introduce the following bylaws. Bylaw 21, 2021, 22, 2021, and 23, 2021. And now that the same now be read a first time. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Final reading of the bylaws, moved by Councillor Longo and seconded by Councillor DeRose, that the bylaws just read a first time be read a second and third time and do pass, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Adjournment, moved by Councillor Sentence, seconded by Councillor Decker, that this meeting is hereby adjourned at 9 p.m. Right on. Oh, Councillor Kenny, go ahead.
Yeah, I received an email earlier this week, along with many of the councilors, with that Donna's leaving. I'd like to thank her on behalf of myself and many of the councilors and many people of the city for all the work she did for us. Thanks a lot and good luck in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny and the rest of council.
Let's hear it for Donna. Unmute.
Thank you, Donna.
Thank you, Donna.
We're gonna miss you.
Thank you.
Definitely, you'll be missed.
For bringing that up, Councillor Kenny.
Thank you.
Okay, so this meeting's hereby adjourned at 9, and I'm expecting more news on the vaccine front in the next day or two, and we'll make sure you get that as soon as it comes out, okay? And that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.